listening to Reignite, a podcast about reconnecting with old friends. I'm Frankie.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
No matter what we chose before the battle against the Archdemon, Morrigan leaves our party and disappears as she promised she would. The Warden sets off to find her. Whether to help an old friend or get revenge for a perceived slight is up to the player. Along the way, we meet Ariane, a Dalish warrior who also hunts Morrigan, but to retrieve a stolen item. And Finn, a mage who is interested in the elven artifacts called Illuvians. This new team works together to track down an active Illuvian with the hope of finding Morrigan as well. When we do, we don't get quite what we expected.
I mean, you did leave out the most important party member in the summary, though.
I figured we'd get to that when we actually talked about it.
Which we are now, yes.
Yes.
We are reunited with our goodest boy. They let you rename him, but I think it's meant to be the same dog because of how he reacts to Morgan later.
Yeah, it is meant to be the same dog. I think... Did you import your Golems save?
I did.
Okay, so I'm wondering if maybe the renaming has to do with importing the Golem save?
Oh, maybe, I guess, because he's not in that.
Right.
It may just also be that of the data it saves, it doesn't save the dog's name, which is fine. I mean, it takes 10 seconds, and he's still, I think, he's still a high level and stuff, so...
Yeah. What I'm saying is I'm curious if some of the things that occur in this are due to the fact that we imported from a DLC.
Right.
Rather than from the main game.
Right. Well, especially since in theory you can do these DLCs in any order. Yeah, I don't know. But either way, it takes 10 seconds. They let you name him right away, and he is so happy to see you. And I love this stupid goober. He's the best, this dog.
I forgot that Bark Ruffalo is just one character too long, so he's named Bark Ruffle.
You should have named him Bark Roffle, R-O-F-L.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, the story starts at Flemeth's hut, just like our initial story began. Matt, I'm curious, what kind of tone do you take in regards to this hunt for Flemeth?
As far as...
Like, to you, is this, I just want to know what happened to my friend? Or is this, like, she fucked off and left us and, like, is your character upset?
No. I didn't play it that way. I played it more concerned than anything else. Because if playing the character true to me, if a friend of mine ran off, I would be worried before I'd be angry. And then once I found out they were alive and okay, then I'd probably be mad.
So I'm also playing more towards, like, she's my friend and I want to know what happened to her.
Yeah.
Because of how our relationship ended up in the original game.
Right.
You know, we made an agreement. She did a thing to make sure that neither of us had to die. And, you know, she got what she wanted out of it. And she was there through the end of the battle. And she left at the end just like she said she would. So... To me, it doesn't necessarily make sense that I would be looking for her because, you know, my friend asked me not to go looking for her. But let's say we're doing this out of a sense of concern. Every time there was an option to be like, she betrayed me, I'm just like, how?
Yeah, I'm pissed because, and we'll get to this in more detail, but there's later in one of the last conversations you have, you can end the conversation, but it seems like you need to take one of those options just to air that grievance, and it's like it's frustrating. So it's like I don't care. I don't think she betrayed me. Game, leave me alone.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like we were saying, I do appreciate that we're here with our dog because in the last DLC, that was one of our complaints. Like, it doesn't make sense why we wouldn't at least have our dog by our side.
Right, because the dog is going to be with us no matter what if he survives.
Right. So here they rectified that. We have our dog, which is fantastic. We meet this Dalish warrior who I thought was a rogue. And every time I try to get her to open something and she's like, I can't do that. I'm like, what good are you?
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't that. It's just when I leveled, I didn't know she had two swords. She was mostly melee. And so it wasn't until I leveled her up later in the DLC where I went, wait, you're a warrior?
You're a warrior?
Why do I have two warriors?
Would you give me a warrior?
Yeah, my dog is already a warrior and a better warrior.
Why would you do this to me? I'm salty about it.
I mean, I know why. Unless you have just a different Mabari, but as we discussed in the very beginning of the game, the Mabari doesn't have to survive. So if he doesn't, You may not have him here. which I
That's
don't know if
true.
that's the case. Either they'd give you a different one or maybe you don't have one. But
I don't
because the relationship is meant to be he knows you, my guess is if you do this DLC and the Mabari didn't survive in the main campaign, you don't have
They
a
give you
dog
one?
here. I think that you wouldn't have one here, but I don't know, maybe not.
I think that as Warden Commander, they would give you one.
I mean, that's fair. I guess that makes sense. But either way, yeah, it doesn't make sense why she's a warrior. She should have been a rogue, especially since she's a dual-wielding sword warrior, which you can do as a rogue. So I don't know.
It's very silly. So we find out that Ariane is looking for Morgan because Morgan showed up at Ariane's clan to be a friend and learn more about their history. But in the process, it was all just a ruse so that way she could steal this book. So that way she can learn more about some elven history and make sense of it more than the clan could.
Yeah, and she ends up stealing one of their most important relics, a book that has been like with their tribe for generations and has their history in it. And she's on the hunt to find it. And when she asks why you're looking for her, I'm sure, like me, you chose I'm trying to find my friend route. She's like, of all the words you could have used to describe Morgan, that was not one I expected, but maybe you can get to her and help me get this book back. Like, she doesn't seem upset that you're friends with a Witch of the Wild. She's more just surprised that anyone would say that, which I think is pretty funny.
I do think that's funny. I think that's also par for the course. Like, I'm sorry, she's your what? Can you imagine if you romanced Morgan, though, and you were like, she's my girlfriend?
Yeah. I don't know that I would ever...
She's my lover.
I don't know that I would ever romance her. I don't know. She just seems like one of those characters that I don't feel right romancing. I don't know.
She seems like a lesbian, is what
she
seems like.
I mean, yes, it's in the same way where when I romanced Cassandra in a later playthrough of Inquisition, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. This isn't how this is supposed to go.
This is not a straight person.
No.
We team up with Ariane, and we get access to the world map, but I feel like there's no point in having access to the world map when there's specific places that we have to go.
So yeah, this is a very linear... Well, so the reason we have access to the world map is because stage 2 can happen in any order. Right. Or stage 3, because stage 2 is going to the circle, but stage 3... Yes. You can go to one of two places. And so I think that's why. But yeah, this could have just been a linear mission where they make you go to one place and then the other, since it didn't matter which way you went. But they wanted to give you this freedom of choice. I think you can also go back to your camp, but I never did. Like I think I saw it on the map. It
just didn't make sense too.
But I imagine there's more bantery stuff. I don't know that you can really develop these characters much. Although I will say, we'll get to the second party member in a minute. This is already one of my favorite DLCs. I don't know if I like it better than Liliana's Song, but it's at least on par.
I agree. I think that this was really well written. Some of the criticisms that we've had about previous DLCs seem to have been addressed here.
Yeah.
Like we said, you have that connection of your dog is with you. You have some connection to the world as you've constructed it throughout your playthrough. I think there'd be even more connection if you were playing as a Dalish origin.
Yeah.
Because the elf that they're talking about with the Alluvian, that's the Dalish origin.
Yeah, although it's funny because when we get to the Kadesh Taig, like they keep talking, Finn keeps going on and on about like, oh, I'll translate stuff. And I'm like, bitch, I know how to speak this language. Shut up. But anyway, we'll get to that. So after this, Ariane mentions that she tried to go to the Circle to gain access to their books to try and figure out where Morgan could have gone, but they, of course...
But they're racist.
Right, they're racist and wouldn't let her in, so we go, but she's like, maybe you can speak some sense into them, and so we go, and of course, what, do you remember the name of the person that we greets us? Adley. Yeah, Adley, who seems a little...
He seems tranquil, does he not?
Yeah, he seems a little airheaded in a way, and I was just kind of confused.
I'm like, did they make a Templar mage tranquil? What the fuck?
Yeah, he seems a little subdued. He may also just not care, which, like, fair. If I were Templar, I also
So he was
care.
a transfer from Amaranthine, which is where we go in Awakening.
Oh, okay.
So I find that kind of funny. But also, see, this section is funny to me personally as a mage origin, because I show up and I'm like, where's Greg? Who are you?
Yeah.
You're not Greg.
I mean, I can also do that, just because, after everything we went through, but it is very funny that you'd be like, what the hell? Where's Greg?
And Hadley's like, things are different from when you were last here. And I'm just like, oh, I don't trust that tone of voice.
No, not at all. But he says that we are free to explore the first floor and look around.
Without an escort. I just want to be like, I was born here. Fuck off.
I want to say, I saved this place. Fuck off. This place wouldn't be standing without me.
This used to be my house. What are you doing in my house?
Episode title, This Used to Be My House. Although I have a good one later. But anyway, so now we get what I'd say is a kind of interesting quest.
So there are some mages fucking talking shit about me specifically as I go through the rooms. You're like, really? Oh my God, I can't believe she's back. Cullen's not here, is he? Because he used to have such a crush on her. And then they talk about how Cullen was sent to a different chantry, a different circle. So he could like calm down and mellow out. And then they talk about what a creep Cullen used to be.
So I get all of that except for the first part. They don't care about me. They're gossiping about the tower.
They just gossip about Cullen in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they talk about me specifically.
Amazing.
And then they continue to talk shit about me, and they're like, oh, I heard that she took on a pirate queen and 3 nugs between the sheets. And I'm like, bitch, you got something to say? I will take you outside.
I mean, there's only water outside. There's not much outside.
Yes, and I will drown them. That's the point, Matt.
Okay, I understand. Thank you for spelling it out. So anyway, as I was saying,
I am feisty. How dare you say such things about me? I saved you.
The quest here is kind of interesting. So we have this giant library, and you can look up the annex of like a bunch of titles in alphabetical order, and as you click on them, it adds them to your map with an X. And you have to find certain books to get the information you need to move on. As an investigative mechanic, it's pretty interesting. It's different from anything we've done before. It's a little annoying, but essentially you have to find a book on elven relics. If you find that first, then you realize that Ariane can't really read it. So then you have to look for an ancient elven language book, and then you can read it.
Which, by the way, I hate this trope, and I hope that they like really undo it in Dreadwolf. This idea that indigenous people do not have access to their own knowledge anymore and have to rely on the invading force in order to help them understand their own history.
Yeah. That's
bullshit, and I hate it.
Yeah.
And the Dalish deserve better.
I mean, it's a bullshit trope, but I think also part of it here is if there'd be no mechanic. Like if you were
No, I understand. This is not just about this moment.
Right. It's about many moments like this and in other media.
Yes, this trope is pervasive throughout Dragon Age.
Right.
Like, this is very much a thing throughout all of Dragon Age. And I really want them to drop it because the Dalish could have their own, like, way of keeping their history, and it doesn't need to be so mainstream. It doesn't need to be so, like, Western European. So it bothers me as a person who studies decolonization.
Yeah, no, I get it. No, and you're right. I'm not arguing there. I think mechanically it makes sense, but definitely narratively it's bunk, and there are probably other ways they could do it. I think they're trying to avoid, if the player is Dalish, why wouldn't they know it? So they do this trope instead, but it's bullshit. I agree.
So also what continues to annoy me is, one thing that doesn't annoy me is that we can get stuff from other books if we are curious enough. That's cool. I like to see that there's other things happening in these books.
Right.
But what does annoy me is you get the dictionary, for lack of a better term.
Uh-huh.
And then you go back to the Book of Artifacts. You don't even get to read it.
No.
Because then comes Finn, who's like, how dare you mishandle these books? And I'm just like, I will cut you. How dare you? You're in my light. Don't talk shit about my dog. Did I invite you into this research study session? I did not.
Yeah. And Finn, who is a mage, sticks his nose in your business and is looking for the Eluvians and is curious about them. And when finds out that you are interested in them as well, wants to bring you to the basement of this area of the circle because there is a artifact that might be able to help in the search. A talking statue.
Yes.
Which Ariane doesn't believe. Ariane's like, wait, this statue talks to you? You talk? Oh, no, it's you talk to this statue? And he goes, yes. And it talks back to me. She's just very skeptical.
Right. Which she should be.
It's
to
fair.
be fair. She's also very salty throughout this entire thing. Like she and the dog have so many conversations where she's like, "What if we just?" And the dog is like, "No,
Yeah.
you're being bad."
Yeah. The dog knows better.
And I'm like, "Do I need to put you in timeout?"
Yeah. At one
Like
point,
you're rightfully salty. They are racist, but
well, it's funny. At one point when I'm running around the tower, Finn goes, "All right, boy, fetch." And Ariane's like, "Did you just say fetch? You can't just say fetch and expect it to bring back random stuff. You actually have to throw something. That's how this works." And like scolds Finn for not knowing how to play fetch. It's very funny.
they are very funny together.
Yeah.
The two of them have very good banter. Hadley, however, tries to deny us entry into the basement.
Yeah.
I again want to be like, I'm sorry, do you remember who I am?
Yeah. You literally want to do the celebrity. Do you know who I am?
Like, come on.
But
There's stuff that needs to be killed in the basement and you're gonna stop me from going?
right. And then you go, all right, I'll handle it. It's like, whatever, it's your next. Go ahead. Like, doesn't take much convincing.
It doesn't. But I'm just like, come on. But yes, once we get into the basement, the
Well,
Sentinels seem... Oh,
Wait.
I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Look, it's very important that we talk about someone who's here before we go into the basement.
Fine.
Our favorite dwarf, Sandal, is here.
He's not my favorite dwarf, but he's up there.
He's a pretty great dwarf. But yeah, it turns out that his father dropped him off to see if he could work on his enchanting skills and if even the enchanters of the circle could learn from Sandal, who's so naturally good at it, while he sells stuff across the river. And so we chat with Sandal, who of course says nothing but enchantment the whole conversation, which is always entertaining. We can buy supplies from him and of course do some enchantments. And then we go into the basement.
Yeah, and also, don't you want to say something else about Sandal and Finn?
Oh, well, yeah, we'll get to that.
I feel like now is the time to get to that.
Fine. I didn't notice it until later, though. But yes, Finn and so Sandal, as we've mentioned before, of course, is voiced by the incredible Yuri Lowenthal. So is Finn, which didn't register with me at first because Sandal and Finn are both characters where Yuri's actually putting on a affect and a voice, whereas often a lot of the characters Yuri plays is mostly a variation on his own voice, especially like his more recent stuff as Spider-Man and Sasuke and Naruto and all of that. Although that one's a little deeper. But yeah, so he is voicing both these characters. Interesting to see them interact with each other here. But yeah, Yuri is reprised. And I think Yuri plays a few other like miscellaneous stuff throughout the games. But it's fun to have a party member with Yuri's voice here. And I like his performance as Finn. It's like uptight, but in kind of comedic and fun way.
We should get Yuri on the show at some point to answer for all of his crimes.
Yes, he's been very busy promoting Spider-Man 2, but I plan on reaching out to him early next year. Ideally, he would have been great to have on this episode, but I think it'd be fun if maybe I can grab him by the time we get to the end of Awakening to just talk about the first Dragon Age and
Yeah, for sure.
what that was like. But yes, always fun to have my buddy Yuri in the party.
Okay, so we get into the repository and the Sentinels are corrupted and they attack us, so no!
Yeah, you have to fight the Sentinels till you stun them, deplete their health, and then destroy these like veil clouds that are controlling them. And when you destroy the clouds, then they return to normal. And there's like a timer, like you have to destroy the cloud in a certain amount of time, otherwise it goes back into the Sentinel and you have to stun the Sentinel again. It wasn't as annoying as I anticipated it being. Also, between the dog, Finn, Ariane, and my summoned animal companion, it was like there was enough DPS that we burned through this stuff pretty easily at this point. Also, because I could import my character, I think I'm pretty over leveled for this section at this point. But the combat wasn't too bad here. It was pretty straightforward. I did expect some kind of boss battle by the end, but there wasn't.
Yeah.
Just like a culmination of what was causing the problem, other than just, veil mice, essentially. Like, just like an infestation, as it were.
Yeah.
We do try to talk to the statue before we fight all the Sentinels, but she's clouded by also whatever's going on. So
Yes.
we have to go clear out the place first.
Also, my character got to be like, oh, this statue. I remember this statue.
So it's funny. I think I've seen the statue in a previous playthrough or whatever. Like it's familiar to me, even though I didn't specifically. My character didn't have any interaction with it.
Yes. But when we finally fight all of the Fade disruptions and we come back to the statue tells us the cryptic clues that we need in order to track down the Illuvians and reveals, frustratingly, that she and Finn will not speak again.
Yeah, and Finn is very confused. The first thing Finn, the first thing Finn says is, "Wait, am I gonna die? Why are we not gonna speak again?"
Never get a resolution.
Nope.
No resolution to this.
Nope. I really thought
I find that very annoying.
I really thought that like after we get to Morrigan, like there would be some kind of like wrap up, but there isn't. It just ends.
There really isn't.
We'll get to that. I'm getting ahead, but like yeah. So and then if you keep clicking on the statue, Finn just goes, "Hello, hello."
Maybe it has to do with her and not to do with Finn.
Probably. But yeah, so after we're done here, we can leave, and now we can choose to go to the Elven Ruins, where there's a shard of the Illuvian that we need, or the Kadesh Taig, which, if sounds familiar, is where we went with our good Golem friend for their companion quest to get what were they called? The Lights of something.
The Lights of Arlathan.
Thank you, Arlathan. A lot of A's in Elven lore. Lights of Arlathan. And so, which one did you choose to do first?
I went to the Elven Ruins because it made more sense to me to get the shard.
I went to the Kadesh Taig because I thought I needed the lights to find the shard.
Oh my goodness, we did something different!
I know, right?
It doesn't really matter in the end.
No, not at all. So we can do So I'm curious though, because when I finished the Kadesh Taig and then went to the Elven Ruins, I did the ritual in the ruins.
I did the ritual on the Taig.
Okay, so that does happen wherever you are. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's do the Elven Ruins. So yeah, we have to fight our way through the ruins to find a shard of an Illuvian that'll help us.
There's literally nothing interesting here in the ruins. It is just fight some infected elves, fight some shrieks. Only shrieks. Why are there so many shrieks?
I hate them.
Like, they're the most annoying of all the Darkspawn.
They are, I agree.
Because they're the rogue equivalent of the Darkspawn.
Right, and I like to be far away from the bad guys, and they come right up on my ass, and it's annoying.
But that is about it.
Yeah, I did struggle to get through the locked door, because I was like, well, I can't pick it. I must have missed a key somewhere. I circled, I looted bodies, couldn't find anything. Turns out I didn't remember killing the keymaster, so I had to look up a walkthrough, and it said just loot the key from the keymaster. I went, oh, son of a... And so then I found what his body was and was able to get through.
So there is a locked door, and then you loop around, and then you kill the keymaster, and that helps you get through a different locked door. There's just too many locked doors that don't make sense.
No, yeah, it was dumb. But I managed to get through, and so yeah, that's it. Then you get the shard. This is where I did the ritual, but we'll talk about the ritual after we do the Kadesh Taig.
Also, I forgot to mention, there are 2 Anders references I got.
I got them too. So one of them was about Anders like escaping from the tower that I got and I wrote down because it's your boyfriend, so I figured I'd bring it up. I didn't get the second one. What was the second one?
The second one is a book that was graffitied with the drawing of a tiger named Sir Pouncelot.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So that's an Anders reference. That is my boy.
That is your boy. We'll see.
Oh, love a man who loves cats.
Yeah, he's totally uncomplicated.
I love a war criminal who loves cats.
There you go. More honest answer. So in the Kadesh Taig, it's more combat. We're fighting a ton of Darkspawn here. Finn has a comment about how he hates the deep roads, although it wasn't as bad as he thought it would be. Then you immediately get attacked. And then this is a cool mechanic. You have to find these fonts of energy, torrents of energy. And when you step into them, you see these spirits kind of moving that lead you to the lights that then Finn uncovers.
So I thought that this would be more interesting if you had more freedom of movement. all of Dragon Age Origins is pretty much on a rail. You don't really have like a maze that you have to go through. So without these fonts of magic, you would have found them eventually. Like there's only so many places that you can go.
Yeah, I think that they're most useful when you get to the actual lights because they're at a specific location that you have to step
Right.
into to reveal. But the direction we're going is forward on the map. Like,
Yeah,
we're
no
going,
matter what.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be more interesting in a more open world environment where there is more variety of where you could go.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like being in dungeons that are repetitive and straightforward is going to come up again in this franchise at all.
But overall, I really enjoyed the Kadash Tag bit
Yeah.
because you get a little bit more history involved.
Yep.
And like we said, a good piece of DLC expands lore in a way that is not necessarily like intrinsic to the main story, but in
Yeah.
a way that is interesting.
Yeah, completely. I agree. And it's just, this is that moment where it's like, oh, and don't worry. Finn's like, I can translate the ancient dwarven scripture. And I was like, bitch, look at me.
I
You think
do
I'm
wish
short
that-
for the hell of it? Come on.
I do wish we had gotten a dwarf companion to kind of round things out, like a dwarf historian. Like maybe we found Dagna.
I really thought that going back to the circle, I would see Dagna, and she wasn't there. It was
Yeah,
very
we
sad.
didn't. I
Very
agree.
sad.
Dagna would have been a really good addition to this.
Yeah. Honestly, look, I like Finn. Love my buddy Yuri. Why Dagna wasn't our party member? This would have been a perfect opportunity to loop her back in, but it's fine.
C'est la vie.
Lavi.
I hate you.
I know. So
You
anyway,
are the absolute worst.
I know. So we fight our way through the Kadesh Taig. There's also no boss battle here or in the Elven Ruins, which I really anticipated. Like, usually DLCs give us at least a couple of bosses, but we fight our way through. We find all the lights. We have to find 4 of them, I guess, because there's
Yes.
4 of us, including the dog. I don't know. It was unclear. Like, it's never explained why we need 4.
There were just 4.
Is it a Star Trek reference? You know, there are 4 lights. I don't know.
No.
Anyway.
No. Not even a little bit.
It seemed strange, but yeah. So, and then wherever
Well, you know what? You seem strange.
I mean, that's not true. So whether you finish in the Elven Ruins second or the Kadesh Taig, on the spot, Finn offers to do the ritual to find where the Eluvian is, and he does after you agree to do it. Oh, we forgot to mention earlier that Finn asks for a little bit of Ariane's blood to help track the lights, and she makes a big deal about it, and he's like, it's just a little cut, it'll be fine. It's important because then after the ritual, Finn starts to complain about how painful it was, and
He faints.
he faints, and
Like,
Ariane's
oh, is that my blood? Oh.
and
he
Ariane's
faints.
like, oh, really? So my blood was okay, but yours, that's the problem. He's like, it's different. They have really
He's a
good
whiny
banter.
baby.
They have really good banter. I really like this party. I'm kind of bummed that we'll never see either of them again. But yeah, so after the ritual is complete, we find out that the Eluvian is in the Dragonbone Wastes, where dragons roost, and finally
What a place.
yeah, Dragon Age with the Dragonbone Wastes. Only took till the DLC to fight a bunch of dragons. I mean, we fought some in the...
We fought some dragons.
Yeah, not a lot, though. But we go to Dragonbone Wastes. We fight our way through. Fight dragonlings.
Fight some cultists.
Fight some cultists.
There was a really good piece of banter where Ariane was like, who would worship a dragon?
Oh, yeah.
And Finn's like, they are strong and mighty and breathe fire. And some people are easily impressed.
Yeah, it was a really good line. Probably my favorite line of the whole DLC from him.
I was
It
like, you
very
are
good.
not wrong. You
Yeah.
are absolutely not wrong.
Yeah, some people are very easily impressed. So yeah, we fight our way through, and then we fight one of the more horrific kind of cryptid-looking creatures as a boss.
The Varterol,
Yeah, which apparently...
which I knew was coming because I read a book about them. And I was like, oh, foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. Yeah, and Ariane says that they are ancient protectors of the elven people. And Finn's like, then why does it look like it wants to eat you right now?
It doesn't look like it wants to protect you, Ariane.
Yeah, and we fight it. It's an annoying boss
Honestly,
fight.
that was worse than fighting a dragon.
It was. And like it's one of those boss fights that we've complained about before where you fight it, it phase shifts away. You fight minions, you kill the minions, it comes back, you fight it, rinse and repeat until it's dead. It's like, it's such a, like, that's such a basic video game boss trope that has existed so long, even before this game came out, that I feel like, I mean, maybe it didn't. Maybe that trope was fairly new at the time, but I feel like it's not anymore now in 2023. I feel like that's a common boss maneuver, is like you fight it for a while, it runs away, you fight its minions, and then it comes back. So anyway, that was frustrating. But all in all, it wasn't that hard of a boss fight. It was mostly fine. I feel like at this point in the game, we're so powerful as our characters that regardless of what our party members do, like at one point during the Kadesh Taig, my whole party died, and I soloed the remaining enemies, which I couldn't do. Like, remember how often I died early in the game? Like, now it's like but we defeat the boss, and then we enter, like, there's a, like, I forget what it's called, but like a basement, like an underground lair that we enter. And
I would have called it a tomb.
A tomb. But, and this is where we see the Eluvian lit and portally, and a familiar face standing beside it.
We see our girl, our friend, our Morgan. And it's very heartening when the dog, like, runs up to Morgan and she actually, like, bends down to greet him.
And smiles.
Especially given, like, all the, like, ugh, your mongrel dropped something in my pack.
Yeah.
Like, the attitude about him when they first met. So it shows, in my opinion, like, there's still a sense of friendship and camaraderie between Morgan and the warden.
Yeah.
At least for me, for the way
Same.
mine played out.
Yeah, same for me. And like, then when you greet her, you have a few options. You can say you're out for revenge. She asks why you're here. You can say you're out for revenge. I chose the line, we were friends once, and I wanted to find you.
Like, I really encouraged her to talk to me. I said things like, you're my friend and I care about you. And she's like, you'll never understand me. I'll never understand you. And there's a line that you can say where it's like, I mean, that may be the case, but we helped each other anyway.
Yeah. And we get to ask about the child, which she says is safe and innocent, and has a fate. And this whole thing is to prepare this child for that fate. And that's why she has to leave. Although it's funny, when you first approach, she threatens to leave through the Eluvian.
Yeah.
Which is what she's going to do anyway. So.
Yeah. But she threatens to, like,
just go.
I will leave now.
Yeah.
And we will not talk at all.
Yeah. But and you can talk to her. And this is where at one point, like when you're going through the options, for whatever reason, my option to stop talking, like to end the conversation, went away. And I could only choose, you abandoned me, you deserted me. And it's like, I don't feel that way, but it made me have that conversation. She's like, I told you. And she says what you said at the beginning of this episode. She's like, I told you what I was going to do. I didn't betray you. I said I was going to do this thing, and then I left. And I did those things. Where's the betrayal? And she's right.
Exactly. I didn't have to say anything like that to her.
Okay.
I instead, like, when my options were like, betrayal or no more questions, I was just like, I have no more questions.
Yeah.
It's like, there's nothing else for me to ask you. But yeah, she makes a big deal of explaining that change is coming to the world. And knowing what we know as people in 2023, she could be alluding to what's coming out in Dreadwolf and what happened at the end of Inquisition, which shows us that there was some forethought going on, that there's a setup happening.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important part of Witch Hunt, that if you don't play this, you don't get the sense that everything that we play from here on out is leading up to what's supposed to be coming in Dreadwolf.
Yeah, and she also says that, she brings up her mother and how, she needs to prepare this child for what's coming and prepare to fight against her mother. And you can go, but I killed her. And she laughs. She's like, she's not dead. She's still around, and she's found many ways to come back for many years. She's not gone, which is alluding to what then we see in Dragon Age 2, which we'll cover when we get to it. So yeah. And then you can't really stop her from going. You can pick a fight with her, which neither of us do. And then, like, as you wrap up the conversation and she turns to go into the Eluvian, she does turn back to you and says, goodbye, my friend, and then leaves, which was just, it felt very sincere and very touching in a way that like a lot of Morgan's lines haven't in the past. But from the end of the main game to now, I feel like we've seen a very different side of her because we both pursued friendship with her.
Also, some little things that didn't quite work for me with the conclusion of this. She tells us that she's left the book that Ariane was looking for along with a gift that we'll find interesting, but we don't actually get to see what that is.
No, yeah.
And we have no sense of just what she left behind and how it's important for the game going forward.
Yeah.
So I'm just like kind of at a loss.
Yeah.
There's no wrap up. Nothing shows us what happens to Finn or Ariane getting the book back to the Dalish. It's just kind of like, okay, you got the thing. She's gone now. You're done.
Yeah. As soon as you finish the conversation, it cuts to the camp. You see the items. You see your party briefly, and then it cuts to credits. So it feels like there was meant to be something there, and maybe they didn't finish it, or they just decided not to do it. But it does feel kind of incomplete in a way that none of the other DLC did. For all of their faults, like all of those DLCs ended, and I was like, okay, this is over. I never felt like I didn't get. But that, like, she alludes, what pisses me off the most is she alludes to that gift, and we don't know what it is. And we never find out, as far as I know, unless it's a piece of gear that we have when we play the next DLC, but I don't think so, especially since our save point is going to be before that, because it'll have auto-saved when we entered that room, but I don't think it saves after, although it might. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I still think that this entire DLC makes more sense if you decide not to have the child with her.
Yeah.
Because then it's not necessarily you going after her, it's a different person. It's the Warden Commander of Lysop, or of Amaranthine.
Huh.
So a different person's going after her, trying to make sense of what happened to the hero of Ferelden.
Right, yeah.
So that makes more sense to me. I think that Witch Hunt really lacks a strong motivation if you pursued friendship with her.
Yeah, I think other than the concern for your friend.
Right.
Which, like, I mean, I can understand to a point, as I have ignored the wishes of a friend if I thought they were in danger or I was trying to protect them, which isn't always the right thing to do, I'll admit, ignoring a friend's request because you're worried about them. But it's a thing I can understand, as I've been there before. But I think all in all, the DLC itself and the content it has is interesting, and I enjoyed it. I like that all of these DLCs, besides the next one we're about to talk about, are fairly short, an hour or two. I appreciate that. I do think I could have spent more time in this one. I think wrapping up the story, going back to Ariane's tribe, going back to the circle, that kind of stuff might have been nice.
I would have liked to wrap up.
Yeah. Like, whereas in Liliana's Song or the Golems of Amgarak, I felt like they ended fine. I liked Golem of Amgarak's ending, the jump scare ending. I thought it was kind of clever and leaned into a horror that had been alluded at before, but like that we had not really seen. So frankly, but like this one, I think it could have benefited from another 30 minutes of storytelling to like wrap up the story. Because it does feel a little incomplete. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. You know, I like Morgan as a character. I really liked our party members. I like that we got to reunite with our dog. I'd never played this DLC before, so it had a ton of surprises. And like, for me also, as someone who lauds Yuri all the time and is fond of his work, it was fun to companion around with him, right? I discovered that he voices a main party member in Persona 4, which I had started but I haven't finished. Like, those him being a random one-off character, like in Mass Effect, is fun, but like this kind of stuff where you get to party member with a voice actor you like is always fun. But I really liked it. I thought that I think this might be my favorite DLC. We still have one more to go before I really make that final decision, but so far I think this is my favorite.
Yeah, it's a very strong contender. I think, like I said, I would have liked it better if there was a stronger motivation. But say lovey. Don't.
I didn't say anything.
Don't do it.
But as I alluded to moments ago, our next DLC we'll be taking on is the Chonky Boy. It is Awakening. It will at least run several episodes. We're not sure quite how many yet, but my theory is 2 to 3 episodes. We'll
I
see.
think it might be more.
Oh, you really think it might be more? I mean, I don't remember. I think it's like 20
I think
hours.
it might be 3 to 4.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely like a 20 to 30 hour DLC. Like it could have been its own game. And I think at one point, I'll have to look this up to be sure, but I feel like I heard murmurings of like this was originally supposed to be Dragon Age 2. Like that was the plan, but then they wanted something more different, so they put it as a DLC. But I don't know if that's like schoolyard like rumors or actually true. So I'll look into it before the next episode.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm excited to dive back into this because I remember like being rushed to get through it in my first playthrough of it, mostly because I was like, all right, one more quick DLC and then it's on to Dragon Age 2. What? This is 30 hours? What the hell? Like, and so I feel like I rushed through it in a way that at least now doing it with a plan, I'll be able to take my time with it and enjoy it. And we also get to meet Frankie's boyfriend for the first time.
Yes, who is unfortunately voiced by a terrible person.
Correct.
But
that's rectified in the second game.
yeah, I love him anyway. If you like what you heard here, you can follow us on social media. We're at ReignitePod on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, facebook.com/reignitepod, or send us an email at reignitepod@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at FrankieBWrites and at DJ_Stormageddon. And on Blue Sky, we're also FrankieBWrites and DJ Stormageddon. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher if you can. It helps us get seen so other people can find us.
Yep, we haven't gotten a new review in quite some time on Apple Pods, and if we get one, we'll read it on the show. So please write us one. We would love it so we can share it with our audience and also celebrate why we're awesome, because that's always fun.
I know for a fact you're listening, Sam. Leave us a review, Sam.
Get him. We're members of the Certain Point of View Podcast Network. You can visit certainpov.com to find more nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view. You can also find a permanent invite link to our Discord server on the website and join in the conversation. There's also a permanent invite link to our Discord server in the show notes below, as well as links to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We make it so easy for you. Come hang out in the Discord. It's been even more lively lately. We've been talking about Baldur's Gate 3, other games. We've been talking about comic books, TV and movies. The strike is over. Solidarity. Hell yeah. Better contracts. We should all strike. Global strike. Anyway, I'm
going on strike.
For strike for what?
Existing.
Existing. Yeah, fair.
My existence is on strike.
But seriously, the Discord has become a hopping place to hang out. It's a lot of fun, so you should definitely come through.
I continue to be a bit of a humble PhD researcher, and if you enjoy what I contribute to the show, you can kick me a few bucks on Venmo at FrankieBrad is hello rad.
You can find all of my stuff at djstormageddon.com. I'll point you towards, if you want to check out other video game content, check out the Fun and Games Patreon. We have a ton of free content going up as well as paid tier stuff, but I'm trying to write an article a month, as well as we post all of the episodes for the main show that are free anyway on there as well. We're trying to use it as a blog/social space, since if you haven't noticed, social media is on fire and we want to have a place for folks to gather and talk about games. Also, our Discord's a great place for that. We'd also like to thank Carter's husband for developing amazing t-shirt designs that you can find through certainpov.com or on our Teespring, and also thank Case for our incredible show art. He does each episode's individual show art, so thank you for that.
Do you think it's time to retire the Carter's husband joke?
Because
I feel like anyone who just started listening to us probably doesn't understand.
Probably, yeah. I mean, Carter will have to come back on, but I don't know if Carter's played the Dragon Age series. I know she wanted to, but I don't know if she has yet. You know, the whole having a baby thing and raising a child takes up time.
That is completely valid. We'd like to thank Radic Wade and Echoes of Oblivion for our theme music.
And of course, we'd like to thank the one and only Red Spinks for our brand new logo. That's not even that new anymore. We've had it for quite some time. You can see his work in a lot of places, including KS Does Art on Instagram.
Well, that's it for us. I'm Frankie.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon. Remember, Grey Wardens.
In war, victory.
In peace, vigilance.
In death, sacrifice.
Okay, bye.
you tired of watching your beloved characters being tortured by careless authors?
Are you sick of feeling like they could have swapped out all of the painful action and the plot would remain untouched? Subscribe to Books That Burn, the fortnightly book review podcast focusing on fictional depictions of trauma.
We assume that the characters' reactions are reasonable and focus on how badly or well they were served by their authors.
Join us for our minor character spotlights, main character discussions, and favorite non-traumatic things in the dark books we love.
Find us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.